digas que no. Hola clase, habla profe. ¿Cómo estás?
No me digas que no quiero
¿Verdad, doctora?
crecer en ti, ese fuego y esa pasión.
Pues estás listo para un video muy interesante. Un video de tarea. ¿De veras? ¿Tarea, profe? Sí, hay tarea. Bienvenidos a Español 4. En Español 4 hay tarea, pero no es difícil, es fácil. Entonces, come las palomitas, descansa y mira este video para aprender el español. Y no es para aprender el español, es para repasar el español, to review el español. Y voy a hablar en inglés durante el video. No me gusta hablar en inglés durante la clase, porque en la clase necesitamos hablar español, pero en casa puedo hablar inglés y tú puedes escuchar inglés para explicar. Bueno, ¿ya tienes palomitas? Palomitas para mirar la película y escuchar. Bueno, en inglés. 2 sentences. Anoche, Mario picó las cebollas y peló las papas. De niño, Mario picaba las cebollas y pelaba las papas. Last night, Mario chopped the onions and peeled the potatoes. As a child, Mario chopped or used to chop the onions and peel the potatoes. What's the difference? Why is there picó and peló here and picaba and pelaba here? Otro ejemplo. Ayer, profe rompió el récord de días consecutivos con un chiste gracioso. Es verdad. Cuando era estudiante, profe rompía los corazones de muchas mujeres. Es verdad también. So yesterday, profe broke the record of consecutive days with a funny joke. When he was a student, profe used to break the hearts of many women. Rompió, rompía. Why? And that's what we're going to talk about. And I think we know. And again, this is something we've seen. I know we saw a lot last year. I think you did a lot in Spanish too, or you at least did some in Spanish too as well. Something we call preterite and imperfect. And we don't spend a lot of time talking about the names of things like that. And honestly, if you don't remember those, that's okay. But if you understand this and how it works, that's important. Preterite is basically talking about things that somebody did. Profe broke a record. Mario chopped the onions and peeled the potatoes. Imperfect is talking about what somebody used to do many times habitually. I know we've used a lot of those words. Or what somebody was doing. So, profe rompía. He used to break hearts all the time. Mario picaba. He used to chop. He used to peel. It didn't just happen once. It happened many times. Now, we've seen I know we've used all of these last year. Sometimes people say, well, we didn't go over that last year. We did. We used all of these. When we talk about what you did yesterday or over the weekend, we use a lot of this. Trabajé, fumé, miré, corrí, vi, salí. Now, if you're someone who every day just says, yo trabajé, yo trabajé, yo trabajé, then maybe you didn't get a lot of practice of this because you limited yourself to one phrase. But if you're someone who talks a lot about different things that you did, then hopefully you got a lot of practice with both of these. When I ask you the questions, I ask you in aste and iste. And when we ask each other questions about what you did over the weekend, we use aste and iste. ¿Qué comiste? ¿Con quién pasaste tiempo? ¿Qué película viste o miraste? He or she, o, yo. A lot of things we do with that. El fumó, el corrió, etc. Amos and imos, we should know. For we, Aaron and Yeron, they did something. They did something. Imperfect, again, if you don't know that name, it's okay. But we've done this a lot of used to do. Aba and ia. And other phrases. And these are really easy. This is hard because they're so different. These are really easy. Aba and ia, we just say abas or abamos or iamos or ian or aban, etc. Okay, preterite. What somebody did. Boom. Here's your chart. that will help you understand it, right? And this is something, again, you saw in Spanish too, I'm sure. Haste o almoçaron for AR verbs. So fumar, fumé, if I smoked. Fumaste, if you smoked. Fumó, if he or she smoked. Fumamos, we smoked. Fumaron, they smoked. Why did you use fumar, profe, as an example? Why didn't you use picar or cambiar? Cambié, cambiaste, cambió, cambiamos, cambiaron. ER-IR verbs, like dormir, romper, salir. Dormí, I slept. Dormiste, you slept. Durmió, he or she slept. Dormimos, we slept. Durmieron, they slept. Bueno. Ejemplos. Calentar, calentar. Remember, we have caliente el horno, warms up the oven. Here's the infinitive, to warm up. So if somebody did that in the past, if I did it, I would say yo calenté. If I'm asking you, hey, did you warm up the oven? Calentaste el horno? Él or ella, he, she, or usted, remember, is you formal, like it's talking to a respected person you don't know very well. Calentó. Mi mamá calentó el horno. Nosotros, o nosotras, if we're all girls, calentamos. Y ellos, ellas, ustedes, they, or you all, calentaron el horno. Salir, IR verb, yo salí, I left, I went out. Tú saliste, you left or went out. Él, ella, usted salió. O nosotros o nosotros, nosotras salimos, we all went out. Juntos. Ellos, ellas, ustedes salieron. Well, imperfect. These are what somebody used to do. Somebody was doing. Again, our chart. Aber. So let's use a different one. Let's use that's a tough one. Picar. So again, let's say when I was young, I used to always do it. Yo picaba las papas. You can cut. Yo picaba las zanahorias. I don't know. Tú picabas. Él, ella, usted picaba. Nosotros picábamos. Ellos, ellas, ustedes picaban. Again, easy. It's all got aba. We use an S for you. We use mos for we use N for they. These two are the same. Easy peasy. This is, again, we talked about this the other day. We don't use these quite as often, but we do sometimes. Ia, ias. So let's use romper. Rompía, rompías, rompía, rompíamos, rompían. Okay, so now we'll take that same verb, calentar, but say somebody used to do it a lot. Yo calentaba. Tú calentabas. Él, ella, usted calentaba. Nosotros calentábamos. Ellos, ellas, ustedes calentaban. Salir used to happen a lot. Now instead of salí and saliste, I'll say yo salía. Tú salías. Él, ella, usted salía. Nosotros salíamos. Ellos, ellas, ustedes salían. How do we know when we should use the preterite, the e and aste and o and imos, or when we should use the imperfect, the aba and ia? Here's some things that, and again, basically you're just understanding that preterite is something that happened one time, and imperfect is something that happened many times. But here's some other clues that help us. We know it's going to be a one-time thing if I say ayer. Most of the time it's going to be ayer yo trabajé. Ayer mi hermana vomitó. Yesterday, last night, anoche, el martes pasado. I'm naming specific points in time. Hoy en la mañana, el martes pasado, el viernes pasado, el fin de semana pasado. Anytime, or even if I don't say that word, if I'm implying that it happened one time, I want to use preterite. Imperfect, cuando era joven, when he was young. That's probably going to mean I'm going to say something he used to do a lot. De niño or de niña, as a child. Todos los días, every day. Siempre, always. Or anything implying that it happened often, it happened habitually. Or a description, because if you're describing what someone was like, that's more of something that didn't just happen one time. That's what era. Era is technically imperfect. El hombre era fuerte. Llevaba los pantalones. He was wearing pants. All right, some practice. This is what it will look like on your Kent State test next week. And although I don't particularly like this kind of format, I prefer like we do a lot of writing and listening and reading and more natural things. So I don't necessarily like the way they do it, but I am going to prepare you for it. So you are responsible for being able to do this. So you'll have sentences like this. De niña, Hillary, and then you'll have the infinitive, a las cartas con su niñera. And you'll need to decide what form of that am I going to use. And you got to decide two things, preterite or imperfect, and then the right form. So I'm going to show you the answers in a minute, but think, what would you put in here? Dos. Anoche mi gato y yo mezclar los ingredientes para un caldo de mariscos. Look at your cues again. Anoche, de niña. Tres. Profe estaba picando los vegetales cuando blank su dedo. Did that happen one time or did it happen many times? And then what's the right form? Natalia siempre blank en la mañana antes de las clases. Siempre. She always used to do it. Señor Conrad y profe blank los huevos crudos. Now, this is one of those things, and it happens in Spanish. It could be preterite, it could be imperfect, depending on what you mean. Am I saying Señor Conrad and profe did this one time last night? They ate raw eggs? Or am I saying they used to eat raw eggs all the time? I will tell you for this, think about they did it one time. There were some raw eggs on the table. Mr. Conrad and profe lost a bet, and they ate them. All right, ready? Uno. De niña Hillary jugaba a las cartas con su niñera. She used to play as a child all the time. Dos. Anoche mi gato y yo mezclamos. It just happened one time. Anoche. So I don't want to say mezclábamos. I want to say mezclamos. And why amos? Because my cat and I mix the ingredients for a shellfish soup. Profe estaba picando los vegetales cuando cortó su dedo. It happened one time. He was chopping the vegetables and he cut his finger. You don't usually cut your fingers habitually. It happened one time. He cut his finger. And it's he, profe, so it's cortó. Natalia siempre corría en la mañana antes de las clases. Siempre. She always used to do it. Corría. For her, for an ER verb. Y cinco, señor Conrad y profe comieron. If they did it one time, comieron los huevos. How'd you do? Did you get all five right? La tarea. Other than watching this video, here's what you have to do. Here's what I want to see tomorrow for you to get credit for this homework. Una tabla, which is a chart. I want to see this chart and this chart. Okay, and I'll go through those again if you want to pause the video and copy them down, or maybe you can do it from memory. But tell me AR verbs, yo, tú, él, nosotros, ellos. ER verbs, so preterite and imperfect. So you will end up with basically, well, two charts with two columns, well, three columns each. 2, 3. Basically, you're just copying this. 1, 2, 3. So you can pause it anywhere you see that to copy that. Una prueba. Prueba is like a quiz. We're going to do a little quiz. Not something super difficult or detailed, but just something to prove that you understand this. You have to understand this to do well on that test, on that quiz. So, if you need to watch the video again, watch the video again. If you need to do extra practice, do extra practice. If you need to look up other videos, look up other videos. You're responsible for understanding. Y oraciones. Sentences. So, those are your three things. The chart, be ready for the quiz. You don't have to do anything technically for that. Just be ready for the quiz, and then you're going to write some sentences. So, you can pause here for this chart. You can pause here for this chart. And then here's the sentences. You can pause here, and you should pause here to finish these sentences. It gives you a trigger, a cue, a clue for when, if I'm using preterite or imperfect. So ayer, one time, yesterday, I know I'm going to use preterite, and it gives you yo. It gives you the subject. So I know I'm going to need something like manejé, or even fui, or trabajé, or comí, or rompí, etc. De niño, Morgan Freeman, cuando eran jóvenes, profe Robin. So it gives you when, and it gives you the subject. Yep. This one you fill in the middle as a question. Did you do something? Did you smoke yesterday? Why do I keep coming back to smoke? I don't know. Did you run yesterday? Did you play yesterday? Did you practice yesterday? Okay, so that's the homework. Y adiós, hasta mañana.
¿Qué antes sentías cuando me mirabas? ¿Qué antes sentías cuando me tocabas? Si te vas no sé qué haré. Eres la razón por la cual seguiré.